It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. Ha! It's Feedback Friday, and forgive me if you see me going like during this video. My TMJ has been flaring up over the last couple days really bad. Sorry. Also, you'll notice the light is different. I don't know what's going on. I had it lit, it looked good, and now I'm constantly overlit. So this is just natural light, which I think looks okay. There might just be, I don't know, the light balance they have to redo completely all over again, and it's driving me crazy. Like, so right now, this looks fine. I'll see if that stays. I think it looks fine. Yes, I really am this pale. Before I forget, help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. I'm really glad everybody liked the Amy video. Well, most people liked the Amy video. I was intending to pull that video and making it patron only. I unfortunately haven't done a Patreon thing yet this week because I have been redonkulously busy and dealing with this stupid TMJ thing. But I'm glad people found that put a name or a term to a phenomenon. And so cool. I admit to being somewhat uncomfortable with all these like names being pejoratives. I really feel bad for anybody named Karen and or Becky and or Amy right now. Though Amy is just me. It hasn't taken on popular lexicon, and probably won't because I'm not a part of Black Twitter. But then I realized, well, you know, Dick, which is a man's name, is an insult, so it isn't all one way. Somebody asked what is the male equivalent of an Amy, and my two favorite suggestions for that were Brad and Eric. So I'm wondering which of those two you guys like. Now, for the rest of this video, I'm going to spend on one particular comment that a few people made. Was about Tuesday's video. And people took issue with my comments about video game voice acting. And, you know, if a character is black, it should be a black voice actress. And people disagreed very strongly with me. And these are people who I know are really good commenters. And they did it respectfully and politely and prove that you can feel very strongly about something and not be a dick about it. But I said, it's like, these are smart people and I'm a smart person. And why are we so, why are we coming at this from such different places? And they're basically like, voice acting is a specific skill to begin with. It's a very small community. It should just be whoever's best for the job. And then I thought about this for like 2 straight days. And then it hit me while I was like in the shower. Anybody else have that ideas come to you in the shower? Anyway, it hit me that this is an industry thing and some inside baseball stuff. And I took for granted a critical piece of information, which is just how racist the casting process is. And I thought I'd explained it sufficiently in the video, but I think because I was trying to keep it to half hour and it took me 3 cracks to record it because I didn't want to say anything that might get misconstrued, I think I rushed it. So I want to delve a little deeper into that. And this is based on my experiences in the media and the things I've noticed specifically about black women and presumed likability and presumed sort of acceptability and beauty standards and all that stuff. One of the ongoing fights I had when I was doing television production was making sure that black women got the status and upward mobility they deserved based on merit. It was amazing how many excuses I got regarding not giving black women, and I won't say women of color because this didn't happen with anybody else. It was only black women giving their due, being front and center because they'd earned it, because they were popular with the audience. When I did Ed and Red's Night Party, which is, for people who don't know, a very raunchy late night show starring me and a sock puppet, we had dancers and like go-go dancers in the show. And one of my things I felt very strongly about is, the women we see on the show need to reflect Toronto, which means multicultural and different body types as well. And the absolute hands down most popular dancer we got based on feedback was this woman who was like a size 16 and like boobs out to here. Like, not what you'd have expected based on the beauty standards of the time, but this is why I say all the time, what Hollywood puts in front of audiences has nothing to do with what men and or women actually find attractive. And I will remember this story until I die. That I kept saying, like, put this girl at the front, put her at the front. They love her, put her there. And I'd set the positions for the dancers from that show, and I'd come back and she'd be in the back. Please come forward, be here. And I'd go to do something else, and I'd come back, and I was a producer on the show as well as a host, and she'd be in the back again. And I'm like, what is going on? I've said multiple times, I want her front and center. She's popular. Oh, well, it's not lit for her. And this is on like day 3 of production. And I remember just rage. And I said, so move the fucking light. Well, that's going to be a 45-minute delay. Well, you should have done it overnight, but do it now. Because people come before lights. And I was unpopular. I heard them muttering, calling me a bitch under their breath. And they did it, and they took about way longer than they had to. They weren't moving terribly fast. And this is how these things happen. And when you're the person to go, no, do it, this woman should not be held back from getting her due by a light. You're the problem. You're the bitch, right? And this, unfortunately, is a combination of things. It's partially laziness on the part of crews. That is a very real thing. I mean, I shouldn't say laziness. They work crazy hours and then they're too tired during the day because they've been working all night. But it's still, they're not present when you need them to be present for quick fixes like that. And the thing is, like, if a light went out on the main talent, if a microphone went out, well, that would be understood. No, you got to fix it. We do have to stop. We do have to delay. But, our lighting essentially being racist because it was lit for people with my skin tone instead of people with her skin tone. And they didn't bother to put an intensity slider on the light. No, that wasn't worth the delay. Yes, it was. But there's more to it than that. It's the question of why is lighting lit for people, well, not even my skin tone. I'm too pale. About 4 shades darker than me. That's what lighting is lit for. That doesn't just happen. It isn't that it's some ideal. It's just what's done. And this is how institutionalized systemic racism works. And they tell girls like me to get a tan, which of course is now passé because that's darkening your skin, and that's wrong, right? It's really ironic to me that what they demanded pale girls like me do back in the day is now considered a form of blackface. Now, very, very interesting, because darkening your skin in any way for a role is now considered that, right? But that's what it was 10, 15 years ago. But just the fact that they just ignored me. They chose to ignore me on that point. And that was my journey into learning the deep ingrained bias against black women in the media. Not women of color, not biracial women, not women of any other ethnicity, specifically black women. And it's everything. It's hair. It's nails. It's structure of everything from facial structure to breadth of shoulders to height to a whole bunch of things. You will notice a great many black women on television are actually mixed race. That's why when they cast the lady who plays Mina Okafor on The Resident, I'm like, progress, and she's awesome. That character's freaking awesome on The Resident. I love Dr. Okafor. Okay, like whoa. But and there are a lot of TV shows that are getting much better now. But for a very, very long time, there was this: people will not accept black women in roles that are at all romantic, at all sexy. It was just audiences don't want to see that. And Beyonce talked about, sang about this on her Lemonade album. It's been this point of consternation that, according to beauty standards, according to female acceptability standards, whiter is better, right? And, sort of the difference between being bougie and being hood rich, as Blackish said, is basically how white you act, right? But there's also, and I left this for last because this is central to this point, there is also a real bias against how black women sound or are more likely to sound. And this is why in this particular issue, I'm like, no, because black women are automatically eliminated from so many other parts. If a character is a black woman, it should be voiced by a black woman just because they're not in the running for other parts because of bias. It's the same argument of a trans woman should be played by a trans woman, not a cisgendered woman, precisely because trans women aren't allowed to play cisgendered women in this day and age. Dispatches from Elsewhere began to break that down. My understanding is the character in that show was not written as trans, but they just did open casting and she was the best actress for the part, and I can't imagine anybody else in that part anymore. But it's the same argument, and I just want people to know that this is a real thing, and no, I can't provide evidence for it, because when this kind of stuff happens in entertainment, it is very closed off. They don't talk about it. It's sort of these unspoken things. Okay, black people in Hollywood talk about it. It's a conversation all the time. But outside of those channels, it's not discussed. And it's not black people in this case. It's black women. And there are very specific reasons for that I'm not going to get into, because obviously this is going to be a baby steps thing. But I really ask you to believe me that if a character is supposed to be innocent and likable and chaste and, that princessy character that tends to be very front and center, you're not going to get a black woman, and you're very, very unlikely to have a Latina cast in that role either, because of the stereotypes about women from those backgrounds. And one of the people that disagreed with me brought up a point that, on the one hand, I think it's great that there is a black voice or a voice actress who is black doing other parts. But on the one hand, it confirms what I'm saying. I'm talking about Mara, I think her last name's pronounced Junot. Junot. Maybe it's Junot. I don't know how Americans anglicize everything, but I understand this is Junot. She's the voice of Sindel in Mortal Kombat 11. Among other things, Guild Wars, things like that. She's one of the few that has crossed over. She's Evelyn in League of Legends. She's a Fortnite character. Well, Sherry Woodhouse is Black in Far Cry 5, but she's voiced characters that were not Black. She's also Storm in Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. But the fact that she's Sindel is sort of a microcosm of the issue here. And hear me out, because again, this is important. Because what's the major thing they did with Sindel in Mortal Kombat 11? They made her conniving and power hungry and evil and all that stuff. And okay, so it's okay to have a thicker, less white voice on that character. And I'm glad she's getting work. I am not going to complain about that. That's awesome. Credit to NetherRealms for thinking outside the box in terms of casting there. But it is notable that it's a decidedly evil character. I would feel better if it was somebody like, she was voicing Katana, or she was voicing, I don't know, there aren't very many good guy women in, Sonya, or Sonya Blade. She'd be great for Sonya Blade. But what? No, that wouldn't make any sense. No, it would sound all wrong. Yeah, why would it sound wrong? Because of what we perceive these characters sound like, right? And, I don't think anybody claims that Sonya is a nice girl. And we don't know what Adenians sound like, right? So why do we just assume, no, that wouldn't be right? Because people I won't say this is prejudice. It's lazy heuristics. It's lazy shorthands. And this is where you start, from a creative perspective, going, well, I don't want to alienate people too much, right? Like, people do have certain expectations that come to the table. And if somebody sounds strange, that's, that's going to put people off. And I understand that, and that's fair. But the issue we have here is the stereotype that Black women are associated with aggression. And in a lot of media, but, gaming's a big one, it's okay for men to be aggressive. Outside of some circles, there's like, all violence is bad, right? But then if you get women who are aggressive, there's all these aspersions cast on those women. Or it has to be this making a point, we don't call our game fun, very specific thing like The Last of Us 2 is going to be, right? And these things don't just happen. And so while I would like to live in a world where the best person for the job gets the job, we don't live in that world. I mean, I think Laura Bailey was horribly miscast as Kate Diaz. The voice that comes out of that character's mouth does not match the design of that character. And I guess they wanted something very specific that only she could do. I'll have to take their word from it, but it doesn't work for me. And I mean, in the case of Nadine in The Last of Us, that character, I understand, I forgot about this when I talked about it, started off as white, and they switched it midway and didn't re-record the voice. I feel really bad for Laura Bailey on that one, because she didn't sign up for that. And this is why I want to be clear. I'm not blaming the voice actors for taking the job, because they don't even know what job they're taking sometimes. These things are so under wraps. It's the people making the decisions about what certain types of women sound like, which are usually men, that I'm holding up for scrutiny here. And again, I thought I said this enough times in the video, but it got missed. If a company does not rub the whole social justice, we're good people and you're not angle, it really doesn't matter. They're being consistent. But, let's face it, Gears of War took a real turn away from the original Brothers to the End theme to all of a sudden you've got this, Gears princess, who's also, oh geez, inherently special because of her connection to the locust hive thing, which is, it totally breaks Gears, because the whole idea of Gears is that they're just a bunch of grunts. Like, they're special because of what they do, not necessarily who they are, though in the comics, Adam Phoenix and all that stuff, but you know what I mean, right? Those guys distinguish themselves based on their actions, not because they had an inherently special connection to something. They've broken that appeal with Gears 4 and 5. And then I think Naughty Dog, it goes without saying that they sort of rub the political angle in everyone's faces, which I think is a mistake. It's strange because before they started doing that, they had plenty of very interesting female characters, though I never really liked Elena. Chloe was cool, but Chloe's role was very old-fashioned movie, like old-fashioned serial adventure cliche, which is fine because the Uncharted games are old-fashioned serial adventure cliches. It made sense for what they did because Amy Hennig understands structure and she understands form and she knew how to make that work. I'm just repelled by Girl Friday characters. And then the fact that the women were wearing tank tops and their boobs didn't move at all just threw me off every single Uncharted game. Because everything else was so realistic. And then the women had rocks in their shirts, right? Drove me nuts. I get why they did that, because, oh my God, morality police. But with all the other realism, it was uncanny valley. But I think it's important that people know that these barriers to being hired on merit exist in gaming, because it really does let you know how exceptional a voice actress like Mara Janot has to be to get the work she has. And if you look at the work she has gotten, they're all sort of a type. And part of the problem is it's a very sexy type. And that character's kind of out of vogue for the time being. And so ironically, you're getting, because of these sort of assumptions people make about Black women and anger and Black women and sexuality and all that stuff, they will get pushed into those more sultry characters. Evelyn on League of Legends looks a lot like Sindel from Mortal Kombat. Just saying. But if you push Black women into those roles, and then you say those roles are inherently bad, guess what you're doing to the employment opportunities for Black women? And these things are real. Like I said, I can't source anything because Hollywood keeps a really tight lid on this stuff. But these things are real, and you ask anyone in the business who is even remotely aware of how casting decisions are made, this is just a known thing. It's starting to break down on TV. In part because people who can change those decisions and change those perceptions are getting into producing tier credits, right? I mean, Angela Bassett's phenomenal on 911, but you'll notice that Angela Bassett is not the only woman of color on that show. It takes somebody with some schlep like Angela Bassett to make sure characters like Hen and her wife on that show happen. That doesn't just happen. That happens by conscious decisions. And gaming has to get more aware of these things. Because, yes, voice acting is a very small community. It is. It is a unique skill. But I know a lot of very, very good voice actors who aren't given a chance because, and a lot of industries are like this, but voice acting is especially bad for it. At any given time, there's 20 or so people that go to the front of line for everything. And some of that is based on they're just incredibly professional and they can get the job done fast and they know they're easy to work with. But some of it is just they have followings. And so they know if their name is on a game, people will be aware of the game. People will come in and bring their fan bases to the games. And this is real. This is not something that people should stop leveraging, especially in indie. Again, I'm not talking about indie. Indie games, it's tough enough to get out the door. I'm talking about AAA stuff. But AAA, because the characters are what matters, they can create a larger roster of voice talent. Of course, what does AAA do? They bypass voice talent completely and get Hollywood actors that they think will bring their fan bases into the games. And in some cases, Trisha Helfer in BioWare, yeah, there's crossover, right? I mean, Yvonne Strahovski, now people know her from The Handmaid's Tale, but before that, she was on Chuck. Yeah, okay, she's got that nerd fan base, right? Those decisions kind of make sense. But if you're gonna bring in people that way, maybe make space for somebody that could get the fan base of tomorrow. And this is not charity. These are not charitable decisions. These are smart business decisions. Exploit the popular talent of today. Absolutely. But use that in part to develop the talent of tomorrow, because that's good for your longevity. Anybody heard of Hugh Jackman before Wolverine? Exactly. Imagine if they required a name in that part. Like, the name in that movie was like Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart, right? Wolverine was an unknown because people saw him as Wolverine. And, that's happened. That's how voice actors are made. They get that chance and they get that break, and then they develop fans. It is better for everybody if we have more people developing those fan bases, because it doesn't seem like everything going full mocap is happening in all games. Ironically, full motion capture is part of what allowed more Black women to actually get parts. But if you, like I said, going back to Mara Janot, if you look at her CV, it's, you don't see that many Black characters. You don't see that many white characters. Her World of Warcraft character is probably the anomaly, but sexy girl, like really, really sexy, super sexy character. So her whole resume is sexy girls and Storm-like characters, like Storm from the X-Men, And then people demonized the sexy girl characters. Do you see where I'm getting at here? The very companies that are demonizing characters like Ilaria Windrunner from World of Warcraft, are you gonna invite the women who voice those characters in to voice other characters because you can believe women are whole people and we can be sexy with our clothes on too? Oh, hold on, wait. No, we're just not allowed to be sexy in the first place. And this is where we get the bigotry against women who make people feel something, right? These voices that give you goosebumps because they're just so inherently beautiful. Oh, no. That makes me feel something. That makes me feel out of control. Can't have that, right? These stereotypes, these bigotries don't come out of nowhere. And they are very, if not completely conscious, still very deliberate attempts to rob powerful women of their power, or potentially powerful women of their power, before they even get started. And somebody like Mara Janot has adapted and overcome anyway. but I want to see her do even better because I think she's freaking awesome. So hopefully this made more sense. Hopefully this is where you're coming from. I agree that in a perfect world, it should be totally on merit. What I am saying is that it's not totally on merit. So we need to insist that because we see you, because we know casting agents, you are not doing it based on merit. You are doing it based on stereotypes as much as anything. That if you're saying it has to be the best person for the job and you hesitate to cast a black woman in a white woman's role, like a character that's openly white, unless she's a super sex pot, well then if nice girls all have to be white, then black women should be voiced by black women, right? Until it gets better and it actually is a true meritocracy and we have a better, more diverse breadth of what merit means in these very subjective casting decisions. So I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you get it. Hopefully I get where it's coming from. This is the insidiousness of things like racism because it's felt more than it's documented, if that makes any sense. Okay, if you like this sort of stuff, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/JannaK. And thanks again for the people who disagreed, doing it respectfully. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.